Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I am Cassandra Mack. For those of you who are meeting me for the first time, I am the author of a book entitled Unleash Your Unstoppable, among many other personal development books. I own a company called Strategies for Empowered Living, which is a training and development company that provides professional development workshops to corporations. And I am also the founder of Cassandra Mack Ministries, where we do church by phone every Sunday morning. Today, we're talking about the ambush meeting. And if you have ever been called into a meeting in the workplace and you're not given a reason, and once you get there, you feel like you are under attack, then you know exactly what an ambush meeting is. Let's define the meaning of ambush, and then I want to take you through what to do if ever you find yourself in an ambush meeting. And let me say this, I say this in just about all of my videos, that there are no guarantees in life. So even though I am going to give you strategies that you might find helpful, you can do all of this and it still may not work out in your favor because nothing in life is guaranteed. With that being said, let's define ambush. So an ambush is a surprise attack by people lying in wait in a concealed position. And so the whole purpose of an ambush is to gain the advantage through surprise. They're actually laying a trap or a snare for you that you don't see coming because they are lying in wait for you in a concealed position. They are not being truthful or apparent or obvious about their position. And so if ever you were called into a meeting at work and you were not given a reason or you were given fake reasons, and then when you got there, you notice there's a whole team of people waiting to, jump on you, so to speak, mentally, then you know exactly what this feels like. And so how do you know if you are being called into an ambush meeting? Here are some clues that will likely clue you in that you're probably in for an ambush meeting. So let's say that your supervisor calls you into a meeting and you already know the dynamics between you and your supervisor. So let's say this is not a situation where the dynamics are positive. Maybe there's been some tension. Maybe you have even complained to HR about an issue. And you can feel that there's some backlash happening. And so when you are being called into a meeting that is likely to be an ambush meeting, the first thing that will alert you that you're in an ambush meeting is that there's more than one person in the meeting. So if your supervisor needs to meet with you and they need to meet with you for anything from corrective action to talk to you about some things that you need to do differently, that is a meeting that they can have with you one-on-one. When they're not upfront that HR is going to be in the meeting, then that's a problem. It's one thing if you know. If they say, I need to talk to you about some issues that you've been having in the workplace, my supervisor will be present or HR will be present, then you know everything's on the up and up and you're not being ambushed. That's a fair thing if you have had some problems in the workplace. But let's say that you're called into a meeting, your supervisor says to you, I need to see you in my office today at 3 o'clock, or I need to see you in my office in 15 minutes. But they don't give you a reason. And let's say you ask, why am I being called? What's the meeting about? And they say to discuss some concerns. And let's say that you press for specifics. Can you tell me what the concerns are about? Is it concerns about my time and attendance? Was there an oversight with a particular task or a project? What are the concerns so that I can prepare and think through what I can do differently to raise my level of performance? And let's say you say something along those lines using your own words, and they say, just to discuss some concerns. And you've pressed for specifics, and you won't get any. They refuse to give you specifics. Then that probably will clue you in that you may be in for an ambush meeting. Or you're given fake reasons. So you're given one reason why you need to attend this particular meeting. And then when you get there, you're given a host of other issues that you couldn't possibly see coming. See, the thing about whenever you're called into a meeting, because there needs to be a corrective action plan in place, or there have been some issues on your part, usually it's not a surprise because you and your supervisor would have had several discussions around the particular issue, whether it's something about the work that you're not grasping, whether it is about a gap in performance, whether it is about a time and attendance issue. You should have had a conversation about it, and you should have had a warning that if the behavior continues, that they will move forward with corrective action. And so it shouldn't be a shock and a surprise. But if you're being called into the office and you have no idea what you're in for, then that's not really ethical. And so what you can do is, if you are not given any reasons, you're just told you got to be there. If when you ask about concerns, if they say to discuss some concerns, and you ask, well, concerns about what? And you give some examples, and mum's the word. They just refuse to answer you. They say, just be there. We just have to discuss concerns. And you hear a we, like, I thought it was I. So we let you know it's more than one person. Then at that point, ask the question, well, who will be in attendance at this meeting? Doesn't mean that they're going to give you a straight answer, but you will know. This is the thing about being discerning. You will know by the way in which they answer you whether or not you need to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for the possibility that you're probably going to be ambushed in that meeting. And so if you say, well, who will be in attendance? And they say, well, don't worry about it. Just be in my office at 4 o'clock, or just come to my office at, within 15 minutes, and when you get there, you'll find out. That alone lets you know that you're going to be ambushed. What you can do next is ask for an agenda and time to prepare for the agenda items. Once again, this does not mean that they are going to comply with your request, but what people don't say tells you just as much as what they do say, and you're still going to be able to ascertain information about what you're walking into just by the nature of how they answer the question. Because remember, an ambush is all about a surprise attack, right? It's a surprise attack by people lying in wait in a concealed position. So the more you begin to ask questions, the more that you begin to lessen the element of surprise. So you're no longer going to be surprised. You can now decipher, okay, this meeting is not going to be positive. They're going to come at me with some concerns. Now, I don't know what the concerns are, but if I think back to my interactions with my supervisor, or my interactions with a particular coworker who is favored, who's the favorite person of my supervisor, then I can probably figure out that it could be this or it could be that. If I'm asking for an agenda so that I can prepare for the agenda items, because if these are concerns about me, then it would just make good sense that my supervisor would want me to fix whatever these areas of concern are so that I can level up with respect to my professional development. So if they won't even give me that, then this already lets me know that this meeting is not about giving me an opportunity to improve my performance or correct my actions, that this meeting is about surprising me, catching me off guard, so that I am in a position where I don't have any leverage to improve my performance. Perhaps I'm on my way out and I don't even know it. And so what they don't say is going to tell you just as much. Keep that in mind so that you're not racking your brain if you can't get a straight answer. If the meeting is called on a Friday afternoon, in most cases, know that Friday afternoons are not great, because most of the time when meetings are called on Friday afternoons and the dynamics are negative, and you know the politics at your organization, you know the dynamics in your department, you know whatever it is that you're dealing with. Maybe this is a situation where you're experiencing the fallout because you went to HR about an issue within your department, or maybe you spoke out against a particular thing that the supervisor was doing that was unfair or unethical, and now you are feeling the backlash of that. Only you know the specifics and the dynamics. And so if you already know that it's negative, and you're being called in a meeting in a meeting in a Friday afternoon, then that's telling you that the likelihood of that being good news is very slim. So what you want to do is a couple of things. What a lot of companies do nowadays that I think is, a terrible thing, but it could be understood, particularly with workplace violence. You can understand why more and more companies do this. But oftentimes what happens is even if you've been a trusted employee, they will have security escort you to your cubicle and wait for you to collect your personal effects, and then they'll escort you out the building. And so begin to get your personal effects in order if you believe that that's the direction that the meeting is going to go to. And get your personal effects in order before you even go into the meeting, even if you have to put them in a garbage bag, so that you have the time to really think through, the items that belong to you. You want to, here's a couple, let me also say this. Oftentimes when a supervisor wants you out and they don't have enough leverage, they will accuse you of claims made by your coworkers or made by customers. But this is where you have some rights that you must exercise, right? When this happens, it is your responsibility to ask for the names of the people who are making the claims against you and to push for specifics. So if you have a supervisor who says, your teammates say that you're not a team player, push for specifics. Who's saying that? And can you give me examples of what you mean by I'm not a team player? Can you give me a specific time that I was asked to pitch in, or I was asked to do something pertaining to my job and I was insubordinate? Can you give me some concrete examples? They're not going to like that you're asking these questions, especially if it's like 3 or 4 people in the room and it's all about intimidating you. They're not going to like that you're asking this question. And most of the time when they say your team members, your coworkers, but they can't give you specifics, like on January 1st at last week's staff meeting you did X, Y, Z, or on the ABC report you neglected to fill out this portion, or you didn't get your mandated documents into us on time and it cost us in money. Those are specifics. But if they can't get into the specifics of what it is that you're doing wrong, what their concerns are, then that already lets you know. So push for specifics. Know that they will assassinate your character. If this is an ambush meeting, we're not talking about an appropriate meeting where you are asked to come into the office and you are advised in advance that the supervisor will be in attendance, their boss will be in attendance, and HR will be in attendance. That's on the up and up, and that you will be discussing some concerns regarding your performance, and they give you specifics, time and attendance, incidents related to ABC. That's not an ambush. That's a meeting where you're discussing corrective action. Those are 2 different things, so I want you to separate that. But when you're brought into a meeting under false pretenses or you're told nothing, then how can you prepare to take corrective action or improve your performance? So know that when a group has nothing, they will assassinate your character and come up with trumped-up charges. And this is why you want to push for specifics, okay? You want to push for specifics. They will put you on a corrective action plan and give you hardly any time to get your act together. It might be 7 days as opposed to 30 days. And 7 days is not enough time to really measure and monitor performance and progress. 30 days you can see, but 7 days is really not enough time. So you will find that they will put you on a corrective action plan for you to get your act together, or you'll be fired, or you'll be demoted. And so these are a couple of things that you can expect. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's the saying where we say hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. And so when you are prepared for the worst, but you're hoping for the best, then nothing can really ambush you or catch you by surprise. It's kind of like when you go to work, right, and you prepare a day in advance your outfits, whatever it is you're going to wear. I'm using this as an analogy. And you prepare one rain outfit with your umbrella, and then you prepare another outfit. And you're hoping that it's a sunny day, but just in case it rains, you already have your rain outfit so that you don't have to waste extra time trying to figure out what to wear, trying to iron something to put yourself together to go to work, because you are so prepared in advance that you're able to move effectively and efficiently. So similarly, when you are called into an ambush meeting, you want to be prepared for several possibilities so that you are not caught off guard. So then the question becomes, how do you prepare for the meeting? How do you prepare for the meeting? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. Number one, once you're being told that, you have this meeting coming up, and let's say you are told to discuss some concerns, so you already know that this is not a meeting that's going to be positive. It's to discuss concerns. Let's say that's what you were told, but there are no specifics. So what you want to do is you want to review any emails, documents, or performance appraisals that you have at your disposal. You want to ask if there's a colleague who would be willing to attend with you, if there's a colleague who would be willing to attend with you. Now, I will be honest and say most people will not want to get involved, but you can still ask. You want to review any emails that you sent and print them out, because if you print out the emails that you sent, no one can say that you said something that you did not say. Next, don't be surprised if your coworkers turn their backs on you. And it's not so much that your coworkers hate you, but they're fearful, because if they know or sense that you are being called into a meeting to discuss some concerns around your job, automatically most people are going to think that there's a possibility that you could be demoted, lose your job, written up, and they don't want to be associated with that because they're fearful that someone may retaliate against them. So it doesn't mean that you might not have support quietly, so you might have that coworker that can't publicly say anything, but will call you at home to make sure that you're okay. So don't be surprised if this happens, okay? So the next thing you want to do at the meeting is you want to pull out a tape recorder, and you want to ask if you can tape record the meeting. In some states, you need permission. So pull out a tape recorder and ask if you can tape record the meeting to ensure accuracy. That's how you're going to word it. Now, obviously, this is if you have time, meaning they tell you that they want to meet with you the next day to discuss some concerns, and you have a day or you have a couple of hours where you can find some place to purchase a mini tape recorder. And I think many cell phones now, you're able to record on your cell phone. So you want to pull out a tape recorder, and then you're going to ask, listen, just to ensure accuracy, I would like to tape this meeting. And they'll either will say yes or they will say no. And you want to check your state laws to see if you even need permission, because there are some states where you may not, so only you know that. They're not going to like this. And I have seen situations where a person asked to tape record the meeting and they canceled the meeting on the spot, because it sends the message that you will not be ambushed, you will not be bullied, and you know your rights, and you will not be ganged up upon. As I said before, there's nothing wrong with being called into a corrective action meeting if you have not been doing what you're supposed to do, if you're falling short performance-wise and everything is on the up and up, or time and attendance-wise, and you know that that's why you're being called in the meeting, and you're told in advance that your supervisor and whoever else will be in the meeting, those names are named. If you know that, that is not an ambush. The company is perfectly within their rights, and they're being ethical, and that's the ethical way to do it. Let me say it that way. So another good thing to do, you also want to take control of the meeting by shifting your emotional posture from an unsuspecting victim to a powerful person who is informed. So you want to shift your posture, shift your perspective. So I've already went through enough indicators with you, particularly when they say we want to discuss some concerns, but when you push for specifics, you don't get any feedback. When you ask who will be at the meeting, can you have an agenda, and you're met with resistance, you have enough information to know that you are going to be ambushed and you should not be surprised. You have enough information. So with that being said, at this point, it's time to take control of the meeting by shifting your posture from unsuspecting target, because you are not unsuspecting, you now know it is what it is, to a powerful person who has some information. And the reason you can shift your perspective to a powerful person who has some information is you've already asked the key questions. What concerns do you want to discuss? If they assassinate your character and they say they've gotten several complaints from coworkers and customers, can you see copies of those complaints? Who's doing the complaining? What is the nature and the specifics of the complaint? Can they give you dates, times, and places? And so these are all things that you can keep in mind with respect to this meeting. If you're able to tape record, what you also want to do is you want to play back the recording when you get home. You want to play back the recording when you get home, because this will allow you to really think through what's being said, what you should respond to, and what you shouldn't respond to, and whether or not you even need to seek counsel. So let's say you get to this meeting and you've asked for the agenda beforehand as soon as you were told that you had to be in the meeting, and they didn't give it to you. So now what you do is as soon as you get to the meeting, you ask for an agenda. Now they might have said, let's say your supervisor saw you at 10 a.m., and they said, I need to meet with you at 4 p.m. today, and they don't have an agenda there. But by 4 p.m., they should have an agenda. So the minute you walk in that meeting, and you can, go a minute or two early, 5 minutes early, ask for the agenda as soon as you get to the meeting, and tell them, don't ask, that you need 2 minutes to review it. Surely they can spare 2 minutes. And that's going to give you time to just digest what you're going to be talking about and kind of think through how you're going to respond. And remember, you would have already reviewed emails that you sent, any documentation, performance appraisals. You would have taken that in-between time, between the time you were told to come into the meeting and the time you actually arrived. You would have that information at your disposal, or at least you would have taken some time to review that information. So ask for the agenda and ask for 2 minutes to review it. You can even ask for a minute and just take 2 to 3 minutes to review it. You want to ask, how long will the meeting be? Are you going to be there for 10 minutes or an hour? And here's the thing again. They may not give you solid answers to these questions. But remember, even if they won't give you a solid answer and they're resistant, just by way of their posture and what they're unwilling to say to you, what they're unwilling to share with you, gives you a lot of information. So if they can't say to you, oh, the meeting will take about 15 minutes, or we'll probably be here for an hour, and if you are met with hostility and they say something it'll take as long as it takes, that gives you enough information to say, okay, I'm walking into a hostile environment. I now have to begin to make sure that I'm prepared. I'm prepared mentally, I'm prepared emotionally, and I'm prepared spiritually. And one of the most effective ways to prepare is to listen twice as much as you speak. And this is hard because the natural tendency when you're in a hostile environment and you feel like you're being under attack is you want to defend yourself. But there's this little line, anything you say can and will be used against you. It works in the workplace as well. And so you want to listen twice as much as you speak, and you need to be prepared with a composition notebook and a pen. So if you're not able to record, Just start jotting down notes and make sure they see that you're taking notes, and you don't have to show them your notes. So here's the other thing. When they present you, or if I should say, if they present you with false accusations, don't defend your conduct in that moment. This is hard. Don't defend your conduct in that moment. Instead, push for specifics. Don't defend your conduct. You're going to be tempted to do that. Don't do that. Instead, push for specifics. You would say something along the lines of, you're not a, let's say they say you're not a team player. Don't say, I'm a team player. Remember last week when I did X, Y, and Z? Don't defend your conduct in that moment. There'll be time to do that. Instead, you're going to push for specifics. You're going to say, can you give me some concrete examples of what you mean by that? Sometimes that I either behaved insubordinately, or I did not pull my weight with respect to a team project. Can you give me a time that I did that? So whatever it is that they say, whatever it is that they accuse you of, particularly something that's a false accusation, push for specifics. Can you give me more information about that? Can you give me a clear example? Can you tell me the date and time of what you're referring to? And then you write down the date and time in your composition notebook, and you write down the example. They're going to be pissed, because if they are making false accusations and you are writing down what they're saying and the date and the time, then they know that you are the one now that has ammunition. But if you run your mouth because you are emotional, and this is hard, who's not going to be emotional about their job? This is why you're going to listen to this video over and over again. If you run your mouth, you don't have power. I'm going to say it again. If you run your mouth, you don't have power. Even when you think about police interrogations, one of the things they do when they are with a suspect is they will ask a question and they will let the suspect speak, because he who asks the questions and speaks the least is the one who is in control of the conversation, not the one doing the most talking, because the more you talk, the more you reveal. Why would you reveal your hand when you are in a hostile environment? That is not wise. You always can come back and refute, because you will be taking notes in your composition notebook, and then you can refute in writing point by point by point. Let them be the ones to do all the talking. They're trying to ambush you. Would you be the one to not walk in a trap? You can't think emotionally. You got to be as cool as a cucumber on a hot summer day, and this is hard. Do not refute them in the moment. Instead, you're going to ask them to repeat the statement, and you're going to restate the statement while writing it down. So you're going to ask them to repeat the statement. Let's say they don't give you examples. Say, can you repeat that for me, please? And then you're going to say, so what you're saying is, and then you're going to repeat it back to them verbatim, and you're going to write it down. You're going to write down who said it, the date and time that it was said, verbatim. This is why you're asking them to repeat the statement. If they do give you an example, and let's say it's a made-up example of a false accusation, they're just pulling stuff out of left field, then what you are going to do is ask them again to repeat the statement, restate the statement, and then you're going to write it down. And here's what happens a lot of times when you ask people to repeat the statement. They get upset and defensive. Well, why do I have to repeat the statement? I just want to make sure that I understand you clearly. That's all you're going to say. You're not going to say so I could refute it or defend myself. I just want to make sure that I understand you clearly and that I'm on the same page as you. Not that you're on the same page as me, that I'm on the same page as you. I just want to make sure I understand you clearly. And what will happen is when a person is lying, the story's not going to be the same. So they'll say one thing, and then they'll say something else. And then you'll catch them. So you'll say, I'm a little unclear because initially you said your concern was my time and attendance. And now you're saying that your concern is that you believe I'm not pulling my weight, but I don't have an example that I can sink my teeth into. So I'm not really sure which one is the issue that we're discussing today. They're going to be pissed. They're going to be so mad. They're going to be mad. So you are going to be very calm and very in control of yourself, because you can always come back and refute any lies in writing. But once you argue with them or you defend, they're also writing, or whoever the representative is writing. Don't say a whole lot. So what you're going to do is you're going to counter their attacks with questions. So you would say something along the lines of, let's say they said, well, you're just incompetent. You're going to say very calmly, you said that I'm incompetent. Is that correct? Can you provide me with specific dates and examples to back up this claim? Very calm, very clear. Let's say that the meeting gets to a point where they're disrespectful, there's name calling, or they keep interrupting you and won't let you speak. If they refuse to treat you humanely or they refuse to listen to you, state that you will leave the meeting if you are not allowed to speak on your behalf. So you could say, I want to hear what you're saying, but you keep interrupting me when I am speaking. I need an opportunity to speak. And let's say they get disrespectful or nasty, then you can say, if you refuse to listen to me and you don't have to say it that way. You can say, if you refuse to allow me to speak, then I'm going to leave the meeting, and perhaps we can revisit this at another time. You are allowed to do that. Now, this is going to throw people for a loop because most people are so used to not being in control of themselves that it can be really uncomfortable. But you have a right to be treated as a human being. You have a right for that. You have a right to that, to be treated as a human being. You want to pay attention to their behavior in the meeting. Pay close attention. Are you dealing with eye rolling, sucking of the teeth? If they're behaving that way, you make sure that you don't do that. You behave as a consummate professional. Give no one ammunition against you. Give no one ammunition against you. So let's say that you leave the meeting and nothing was really resolved. They were making false accusations. Let's say that for many years you always were a model employee. You've always had glowing performance appraisals, and all of a sudden, now that you have a new supervisor who for whatever reason doesn't like you, you now have terrible performance appraisals. Or let's say they want to put somebody else in your position because they want to pay someone half your salary and they're trying to kick you out, so to speak, right? If that is the case, and all of a sudden you went from being a model employee to a person who doesn't pull their weight, then you already know what that is. You already know what you're dealing with. So once you leave the meeting and your coworkers ask you what happened, tell your coworkers what happened. Tell your coworkers what happened in the meeting. Do not agree to keep the meeting confidential. This is not the same thing as gossiping, because you are talking about an experience that you personally went through. You are not gossiping. You are retelling your personal experience in that meeting. So do not agree to keep the meeting confidential, because if someone is discussing you and they pull you into that meeting under false pretenses and they are not on the up and up, you are under no obligation to keep that meeting confidential as it pertains to your part, whatever the accusations are that are being made against you. So tell your coworkers what happened. Don't agree to keep the meeting confidential. And ask coworkers if they had a similar experience, because sometimes you will think that you're the only one. Come to find out, 2 or 3 other coworkers had the same experience as you. And if so, it may be time to plan a joint response if no one else has spoken up or responded, particularly if you have a boss who is resorting to creating a hostile work environment, workplace harassment behaviors, bullying behaviors, then you have rights as well. And if need be, particularly if you are being falsely accused of things at your job, then you may want to seek counsel. So I hope you found this video helpful. As I said, there is no perfect answer because we do not live in a perfect world, so you're not going to have every issue and every question answered by way of this video. But what you do have is a couple of strategies that you can pull from. I offered you a few. And even if you walk in that meeting with one or two strategies, at least you're not under the pressure of an ambush because you're like, okay, when I think about everything that Cassandra talked about in this video, it lines up. And when I press to ask the question, what concerns do you want to talk to me about, and they won't give me any information, I could safely conclude that the meeting is probably not going to be a meeting, about what a wonderful employee I am. So the likelihood of me being ambushed begins to decrease because I can prepare. And so I hope you found this video helpful. If you've ever been ambushed at the workplace or even ambushed at church, I've heard of those kind of meetings where someone is pulled into a meeting and they're demoted from a position. But if you've ever been ambushed in a meeting, what was that experience like for you, and what helpful tips would you offer to someone who is going through the same experience? So use the community. Let me also say, I want to just give you two quick announcements. Beginning February 3rd, Monday, February 3rd, I'm doing an online book study from my book, Unleash Your Unstoppable. It's going to take place on YouTube. And we're going to be discussing the principles in the book. Not all of them, but I'm going to take a couple of principles from the book and walk you through the strategies, but you need to get the book. So for those of you who want to be part of the Unleash Your Unstoppable book study happening on YouTube, you can order the book from Amazon.com, or you can order the e-book from my website, strategiesfoремpoweredliving.com. I will leave the links in the video description box so that you can get the book in time for our online book study where I'll be sharing principles from that book. I also want to encourage and invite you to worship with us every Sunday morning on the Sunday Morning Hour Power Church by phone, and I'll leave the info in the video description box for that as well. Always remember, you hold the pen that writes the chapters of your life. Iron sharpens iron, so be the iron that sharpens somebody else's life. Take care.